like I said, shoot a note into the chat where you're dialing in from, where your kids are going to college. I'll get us started. My name's Chuck Bates. I'm a financial advisor in Houston, Texas. I've been working with the CAP team for several years. I got interested in this because my wife and I were foster parents, and we adopted a little boy. And in that process, I found out that in the state of Texas, any kids coming out of Child Protective Services get tuition waivers. And I figured if I didn't know that, what else don't I know? So really spent a couple years learning about how colleges give aid, their business models, how the financial aid system works from the government. And now I'm hoping to share some of that information with you. If we have questions, we'll ask you to put those in the Q&A and not the chat. I'll do my best to get to everything tonight. I am flying solo. My fantastic partners, Dan Bissig and Renda Wilk, are off doing other presentations for families just like you tonight. So you'll have to bear with me. Without my teammates, I'm probably not as great as they have been. And if you haven't seen me before, I spent the last couple of weeks coaching a 12-year-old football team, so that's why I haven't been here as much. But we'll get going and we'll look for the first question. But before we do, I just want to share our disclaimer. Basically, we're here to give you the best advice we can on how financial aid works. We're not lawyers, financial advisors, or CPAs. Don't take that kind of investment advice or tax and legal advice from us. Seek a professional. But we are here to answer all your questions. And with that, we'll go ahead and look at the questions and see if we can't get started. All right, we got one person from California, 2025. Getting ahead of the game. I like it. All right, who's going to be the first question of the night? One other change that's coming up, since there's no questions coming in right at this second, office hours is going to change to only once a month instead of every other week. And there will no longer be a recording. It will just be the live questions and the answers. So if you want to get something answered, you will have to dial in and join. You won't be able to register and catch the recording later. It's just it takes a lot of resources to put this together. And we're doing more and more presentations for individual schools and different places throughout the country. So we're kind of having to dial back on the office hours a little bit, but we still be here once a month to help you guys out as much as possible. All right, looks like questions are coming in. On the FAFSA, it asks for payroll income, but also line AGI, which is more important or weighted more heavily. How do they work together? So AGI is your adjusted gross income. That is line 11 on the FAFSA. Typically, what they're looking for is kind of what's your income? How much did you pay in taxes? Did you have any non-W-2 income from a business or anything like that? And they're trying to use those things to create an entire picture of your financial situation. So AGI is probably the primary driver. Obviously, the more tax you pay, the lower your SAI is going to be. So there's a lot of things that work together. Yeah, AGI very well could be lower than your W-2 income because there's some deductions that are allowed in AGI. So that is possible. And that's not a problem as long as you've done your taxes correctly and your CPA helped you. You shouldn't have any issues there. All right, next one. Any idea why my son has been getting acceptance letters without any merit award info? Our admission officer is waiting for FAFSA. So it varies from school to school. There are cases where people have been getting some merit awards already. Typically, your final awards will come in around spring break or March when you get your entire financial award letter package. But I know what you're talking about. A lot of schools will send it out at the time you get your acceptance. This is a unique year because of the FAFSA being pushed back till December, but I don't think that should necessarily be the reason that you haven't got any merit award letter. I don't know how many acceptances you've got or what the schools are like. I wouldn't panic about that yet. And you know, if I have a little more information, I might be able to give you some more insight. Are they federal schools? Are they private schools? You know, a lot of the private schools are 100% need met, not necessarily given merit aid. So a lot of variables that go into it, but I wouldn't panic about it. All right. How is Social Security from my husband counted? How is it counted for the student? Um, that's a pretty broad question. I don't know if that's disability income, but basically any income that flows through to your AGI will be counted. Sometimes there's some untaxed income that gets counted. If it's counted as income, that's the biggest driver of your SAI. When you get a request for verification, are you required to submit bank and brokerage statements? When you do get requests for verification, I would send only and specifically what they ask for. If they ask for bank and brokerage statements, you may need to include those. Typically, it'll be tax documents, W-2s, 1099s, 1040s. But whatever they ask for, you should submit. Awesome. Keep them coming. This is for you guys. Do you know if Vanderbilt University gives more merit-based or need-based? Thank you. Well, let's take a look at that. I'll share my screen and we can take a look. All right. I do know the answer. I'm pretty sure Vanderbilt is only giving merit aid as their 100% need met, but let's take a look and show. All right, you guys should be able to see my screen, I hope. See if I might have shared the wrong one. Let me try it one more time. All right. So if we look at financial aid, Vanderbilt meets 99% of total need met, and less than 10 or less than 11% of people receive non-need merit aid. So they are much more generous with need-based aid than merit-based aid. All right. Do they ask for bank statements? I think that's going to change from school to school, but typically it's probably going to be like tax documents. Like I said, if they do ask for bank statements, it's to verify the financial information you've put in terms of savings, checking, and those type of accounts. How does child support get addressed if it's going away when your student graduates high school, i.e., well, if your student is a senior this year and going to be attending college in the fall, child support would now be considered an asset as opposed to income, so it would be assessed at around 5 or 5.6%. If it's going away, that would certainly be something you could file an appeal on, or if you complete your 2023 taxes early in the year, you could probably use those to justify an appeal for need if it is a large portion of your income or how you're paying for college. Parents have to include assets from an irrevocable trust, which are so the parents are beneficiaries alone. Trusts are a little sketchy. In general, trusts need to be included. There's a lot of ifs, what ifs, and if the students will have access to any of those funds, whether the parents are beneficiaries or not. So for something like that, I would suggest you book an hour with one of our experts and share some of the trust documents with them to be able to take a look. There's a lot of what ifs with that. If you want to book an expert or an hour with the expert, you can do that by, I'll share a screen, going up to the top of the profile and where it says talk to an expert, you can click there and purchase an expert consultation. If you do that, you'll definitely want to make sure you supply any of the trust documents in advance for somebody to take a look at. When they say total need net, that includes loans, correct? Typically, a school will meet need in one of three ways: through grants, loans, or work study. So yes, it could be one of those three. Loans are obviously money you have to pay back, but it could be, low interest rate loans through the school, or different options that come up. Some schools will meet 100% of need with grants. Some will meet other percents, anywhere from 100 going down a sliding scale. So yes, it could be loans, work study, or grants. Okay, so following up on the acceptance letters without merit letters, they're out of state, not highly ranked public schools, not very selective. Um, yeah, that is maybe a little bit surprising. Did you look to see where your student falls in the let's go back and look at schools here. Let me just or dashboard. So like if we look at Austin College, this is one I've mocked up. If you look at the admissions, you can double check what their GPA and SAT ranges are to see where your student falls. If you look at the high numbers, that is the cutoff for the top 25%. If your student was in the top 25% of the historical incoming freshman classes, I think your odds are better for getting merit aid. So that might be part of it, depending on that. But yeah, it is a little surprising. But again, I wouldn't panic, and I just keep an eye out in the mail, and also have your student check the portal. It's possible that they will email it directly to the student through the school's portals. That's not uncommon as well. For international applicants, which forms to fill out? I don't know if you're asking about admissions or financial aid. FAFSA is really only for domestic students. CSS profile, some schools will accept it for international students, or what's the term? Arizona State's got it. I'll look it up and see what it is. Just a second. Arizona State. Arizona State. Aid. All right. Well, I can't find it. But some schools will allow international students to complete the CSS profile. Otherwise, that's the kind of your only choices. All right. My husband works as per superintendent, and we do not pay rent for the apartment. Should I mention about it in CSS when they ask living situation? When they ask for living situation, typically they're asking about home equity. I can't remember. Let me see if I've got the slides where it specifically asks about. If it asks if you, I think it only asks if you rent or own. I can never remember. Check here, bear with me. So permanent address, permanent home address. Yeah, so there's a box that says housing employed by or housing provided by employer. So the choices are own home, rent home, live with others, housing provided by employer. And those are required fields, so you'll have to choose one, and you would choose whichever one most closely applies to your situation, which in this case, it sounds like it's provided by an employer. So yes, you would have to do that. Oh, there you got added the answer to the question right below that. Thank you. Yeah, so housing provided by employers sounds like most likely the situation. All right. If 20% of the parent's liquid assets exceeds the cost of tuition, does the parent's income even matter, or will there be zero aid even if the parent's income would otherwise qualify for aid? What if the parents are funding tuition for twins who are both going to college at the same time? So there's a lot of components to unpack in this question. What I would tell you is your best choice is to simply plug all that information into the MyCap calculator in your profile. Make sure you've included your assets, the income, and then look at the SAI. And if the SAI comes out less than the cost of attendance, then you might qualify for need-based aid. Otherwise, you would have to search for merit-based aid. So let's see. And then what if the parents are funding tuition for twins who are both going to college at the same time? That question is a change this year for the FAFSA. Previously, there was an SAI split. This year, that's going away. However, I've been on the phone with a couple different financial aid departments who said they are going to honor it. So I think it's a school-by-school basis on the private side. So you'd want to check with them. So again, my suggestion would be fill out your profile on MyCap, determine what your SAI is. If it's lower than your cost of attendance, you'll potentially get some need-based aid. And on the twins, you'll want to check on a school-by-school basis. Thanks. All right. Divorcing parents, kiddos should qualify for Pell Grant on custodial parent income. How does it affect SAI if younger siblings are dependents of non-custodial parent, i.e. fewer household members? All right, so the number of kids in a household does impact SAI a little bit, but it's not the primary factor. Again, it's going to be primarily driven off your AGI and assets. Again, if the schools require both parents, it's not really going to matter. So there's a lot of variables in that one as well. But again, income is the biggest driver, and that's what you should be focused on. And that's kind of the short answer. All right. If my kid goes to high school in Canada and will graduate from Canada, but we are American and we live in the USA, is my kid considered international student or American student? My kid goes to high school. Well, are you a U.S. citizen is really the question. If you are a U.S. citizen, you should be considered an American student. But we are American and live in the USA. Yeah, so I would say they're going to basically consider you the state you live in at your permanent address an American citizen. Yes. CSS profile. What amount should we specify as what we can pay on the CSS profile if the twins are applying at the same time and we're not sure what financial aid package each will receive? That question can only hurt you. It can't help you. You have to be comfortable with what you put on the CSS profile. It's your application. But I have families that say they will not be paying or cannot afford to pay anything. And I have families that say they will pay, whatever they're paying for, currently paying for private school. So it changes from family to family. But again, I would default to what the lowest potential amount you could potentially pay is. That answer can only hurt you and cannot help you. All right, give me 1 second here. All right. Will I be able to apply for freshman aid as a sophomore if I didn't apply as a freshman? That's kind of a school by school basis. I believe like Columbia and in New York, if you don't apply for a freshman year, I don't think you're eligible any year after that. So you'll definitely want to check with the schools you're applying to. I would say more often than not, you can apply for need-based financial aid each year. You can complete the FAFSA, but there are some schools that rule it out if you don't apply as a freshman. Thanks. Parent housing, enter the value of monthly housing benefit provided by your employer, if anything. Yeah, so if your employer is providing you an apartment that you live in on campus or something, you'll have to come up with an estimate of what that is. When applying for outside scholarships, are they typically for tuition only? Can they be used for room and board or books? The total amount of scholarships received is greater than the tuition amount. So a couple things to unpack here. Typically scholarships can be used for any qualifying educational expenses. Whoever you're getting the scholarship from might dictate that. The school might have some rules on that. If it goes to room and board, it could potentially be taxable. And the other thing to be aware of is if you are getting scholarships from a school, university, and they ask, did you get any outside scholarships? They may in fact reduce the amount of aid they give you by the amount of the outside scholarships. So a lot of what ifs in that question. I hope that helps a little bit, but yeah, you'll want to check with the school and see. Which parent assets, home equity, 401k, Roth savings are considered applicable to the SAI, and what percentage is expected to be considered as SAI? CSS is asking for 401k and Roth asset values. Yeah, if you don't participate in those plans or skip that question where it asks what plans do you participate in, it won't ask the values. Once you've clicked on that, it does ask the values, even though they are not supposedly considered in the formula. I would just answer, honestly, and put them in there, but retirement assets are not considered in the SAI formula. So Roth, 401k, Roths, and IRAs would not be considered. Checking, savings, certificates of deposits, and so on would be. Hope that helps. All right, looks like we had one question in the chat, so I'll try and take a swing at that, but please make sure and put them in the Q&A. Which parent assets are considered applicable to the SAI and what percentage is expected to be considered? Oh, this might have been the same exact question, so you might have already moved it. But again, yeah, so retirement assets are not considered even though they ask for them. If you check a box, it opens up the next question, which asks for the values. Again, retirement assets, so 401k, IRAs, SEPs, Roths shouldn't count in that formula. Checking, savings, CDs, taxable investments, UTMAs, things like that will. All right. What else do we got, guys? All right. So have commercial real estate business, one property rental under its own LLC, what I place under business or other real estate assets. That's really a tough question. If it's only one rental property, it could go either way. If it's a business LLC, you can put it in either. That would be one. Maybe you want to book an hour with somebody and see what the value is, what the, how much income it's generating, what are the gross receipts, stuff like that could have an impact. What are your expenses? If it was a lot of rental properties, I would say you'd want to do it under the business as opposed to other real estate because you wouldn't want to list every single property. But that's a little bit of a toss-up. If you get to that question where it says, how many businesses do you own or operate, and you don't put a reply in there, it will skip the next questions that are not required. So that's something to think about. If the last time you contributed to your retirement account was 10 years ago, we have a substantial amount in retirement accounts, but haven't contributed in 10 years. Do you answer yes or no to the retirement question? So again, you need to be comfortable with your responses on the profile. If you're not currently contributing, yeah, let me go and see if I can find the exact wording of the question. I think it just says, do you participate? So let's see. Which retirement plans does Stephen participate in? So if you're not currently participating, I suppose you could just leave them blank and skip or click save and continue and not have to answer that. For international applicants, after filling out the CSS profile and paying the fee, do I have to submit overseas tax returns? No, I have not helped any international students in the last 3 years, so I do not know the answer to that. I will see if I can find it while we're on this, and if I do, I'll reply. But if not, you may have to book an hour with one of the experts who has helped some of our international students. What do you do with EE savings bonds that were given to a child? You have to say it's their asset or parents. Also, can you change name on the bond to parents? Let me see. Okay. So I guess my question would be, do you have paper bonds or are they in the Treasury Direct site? If it's in the student's name, I think you're going to have to uh, identify it as a student asset. I'm not familiar if you can change the name on a bond, on the EE bond after the fact. I don't come across those all that often anymore, so I apologize. Don't know that one off the top of my head. Look at the paper bond. If it's got the student's name on it, I think you'll have to disclose it as a student asset. Some schools are need blind and some are need aware. Doesn't mean applying for financial aid will affect admission decision. Yes, in some cases, it absolutely can affect an admission decision. All right. 30 questions so far. This is fun. Thank you for your good questions. Holiday Pro profile. Estimate business value, commercial real estate, looking for net profit or assets to help calculate the SII. So again, typically on the question, once you answer yes to owning a business, it goes into a series of questions about so name of the business, type of business, primary service, name of the parent who owns it, what's the percentage of ownership, when was it started, do other family members have ownership in this business, current market value of the business, gross receipts, gross expenses. So there's a whole series of questions. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're looking for an estimated value of the business. Again, I think, you know, with one rental property, I think it's a toss up. If you had a lot more, I would definitely classify it as a business. But yeah, you'll need to, I assume if it is a business, you probably do a Schedule E. There might be some information you can derive from that to help answer the question. Does anybody have all their applications in already and the CSS profile completed? So it's recommended students apply to schools, competitor schools. Some are obvious, but how can I find out each school's competitor? Yeah, so typically the easiest way is to look at the sports conference they're in, and those would be the schools. As you get up in the Northeast and the NACACs, if you're going to apply to Northeastern, well, then Boston University is one. Syracuse, there's a couple others that would fall into that. Really, you just have to kind of, there's no hard, fast answer on that. You can always kind of uh, go to the admissions office and ask them who their competitors are. But basically, I would look at kind of school conferences, sports conferences. That's probably the easiest way to start. And they're always going to have kind of a similar academic profile as well. If you've been saving in a 529 and want to reserve some of it for graduate school, can you take that position when answering the question about how much you can afford to pay? So the 529 question, I think there's still some gray area out there from the Department of Education. We've seen them say that you're going to be able to count the 529 only for the student, but we've also seen in the past where they said all 529 assets, regardless of number of students, have to be counted. So basically, you can't withhold that information if you have a balance in 529. The only, I guess, subjective or gray area I would say is if you're going to graduate school and that's another 4 years, you want to divide that number by 8. That's potentially an option, but just be prepared to have a conversation or discuss it if they ask questions. The other thing I'd say is, if you're going to grad school, I would encourage you to go to the least expensive undergrad school you can and save as much money as possible for graduate school. Those dollars are a lot harder to come by. Will colleges see the applicant's financial aid application to other schools via the Common App? I don't know anything about the Common App. I'm sorry. I only my expertise is around the financial side, not the application, not the Common App or the school application. So sorry, I can't help too much on that one. Is there a benefit to investing in an IRA to reduce SAI? Basically, retirement contributions get added back to your income. So no, there's not typically a huge benefit to that. We support our relatives out of the country. Would we be able to ask colleges for more aid based on that expense? You can always ask. I don't know what their answer will be. If they were considered dependents here in America and you had some proof of that support, I think it would be considered. Outside of the country, I don't know what that answer would be, but you can certainly ask. One thing I will tell you is 100% of the time you will not get what you don't ask for, so it's always worth a try. It would probably be during an appeal process after you get your financial aid award letter. Lots of international questions tonight. That's neat. Making a few notes about what the question topics were. All right. Any other questions coming in? We've still got about 25 minutes. Be happy to take a swing at just about anything. All right, well, we'll give it about 2 or 3 minutes, and if no new questions come in, then we will wrap up. But happy to try and answer anything that comes up in the short term. How many of you have gone to Matt and Peg's CSS line by line Zoom webinar or any of the other Financial Aid 101 award, webinars? See a couple hands, awesome. Matt and Peg sure are incredible. Lots of hands going up. All right, that's great. What websites do you recommend to assess value of real estate properties? That's a good one. So just a second, I would say Zillow is obviously the first one that the schools themselves are going to look at. Federal Housing Authority calculator, Federal Housing Administration calculator. I'll put this one. So this is another one you can use going into the chat to everybody. So Zillow, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, and then the last one would be your local tax assessor. In Houston, we call it HCAD, so it stands for Harris County Appraisal District. Wherever you live, I assume they have something similar. Would you also use IRS quick sale for business property? Yeah, I would try to discount every property I own across the board. What to do if behind on tax filing? Can you still apply for financial aid? Yes, you can still apply, but they may not process it without your tax information. So I would encourage you to get that done. Obviously, it's prior year, so it's from 2 years ago, and those were required to be done in October. If you haven't done it, you know, there you might have some other challenges along with that. If you have another kid older than 18 but disabled, so you pay most of the bills because Social Security doesn't cover all, how is that considered? How do we put that? That would be a question about number of people in your household and number of dependents that you're supporting. You know, if he's over 24, then he'd be considered an adult. If he's not in college, it would be somebody you support. So it would count towards your household, and then you could probably, if you have other expenses related to that, you could use that in an appeal as well. Big advantage, you might have answered this before, but any big advantage to doing early action to regular decisions apart from receiving early decisions? Again, admissions is not my expertise or my area of strength, but what I will tell you is early decision is binding, and you only get one shot at it. So if you apply somewhere early decision, that's pretty much where you're going, and you're applying there. You should definitely know if you can afford it or not before you apply. That would be my only comments on early decision. Again, IRA contributions and 401k contributions get added back into your income, so no, they don't really reduce your SAI. Is it possible to take a gap year to establish residency for a state tuition purpose if my entire family is actually moving to the state? We are moving in June, so we need a year to become residents of the new state. Every school treats it differently. Some are more forgiving when you move there. I think you probably have a little bit more you're a little bit stronger case if your entire family's moved there. But again, it's going to be a school by school basis. Some schools, if you didn't start or if you didn't graduate high school in the state, they're not going to consider you residents. So check with the school, ask if what happens if the whole family's moving, and they should be able to answer that pretty easily for you. It does not matter what schools you list first on the FAFSA. You don't need to put them in order that you want to go or anything like that. Um, that's not that big of a deal. You can just put them, all the schools you're applying to on there. I think it's 10 that can go on at a time. After you've submitted it to 10, you can wait a couple days and replace a couple schools if you have more than 10. Child on joint account with parents under parent social security, parent asset or child asset for SAI. If the child's on the account, they're probably going to be assessed at least 50% of the value, even if it's the parent's social security number on it. And if it's a UTMA, that's going to be considered a child asset. I increased my 401k contribution this year. FAFSA will not ask for it. Reduce my SAI or FAFSA. No, the contributions you make to retirement accounts get added back into your income. Give it a few more minutes, and if not, we'll wrap up. You're welcome. For the trust expert, you would just choose any of the experts and explicitly say that uh, you want somebody to review a trust with you, and then we can make sure that it gets to somebody with expertise to help with that. Sorry, I might have misunderstood your question earlier. I see what you're saying on contributions to tax. But generally, I think when it's referring to untaxed income, uh, it's referring to money received from extended family members like grandparents, some housing and living allowance paid to service members and clergy, um, some things like that. So just keep that in mind and double check it. I don't think it refers to that. Mhm. All right, so a couple questions. Does FAFSA take retirement assets into account or not? No, they do not count retirement assets in the formula. Those are separate. I think where a lot of the confusion's coming in is qualified retirement plans, 401ks, Roths, Keogh plans are not reported as an asset on the FAFSA. They do ask for those on the CSS profile, but they're not included in the formula. So they ask for them on the CSS profile, but they're not included in the formula. FAFSA does not ask for them and does not take them into account. But if you voluntarily contribute to a qualified retirement plan that's excluded from income, like a pre-tax contribution to a 401k, I believe the contribution is reported as untaxed income on the FAFSA. It prevents families from artificially reducing their income by increasing contributions to their retirement plans. Hope that answers both of those. Any other questions? Nothing comes in the next 10 seconds. We'll wrap it up. I hope there's no confusion on those last two questions. If there are, shoot something in real quick, but hopefully that's clear now. Again, the next office hours is going to be December 11th. December 11th, going forward, it will only be once a month. For separate families, both fill out the forms or just one. Typically, for the FAFSA, it's the custodial parent, whoever provides 51% of the financial support. For the CSS profile, it could be both. The FAFSA video from PEG will probably be available sometime after it becomes available in December. So, I would guess very close to the beginning of the new year, kind of January 1st. She'll need a couple days to get through it, and we don't even know exactly when it's coming out. But check our YouTube page or the collegeaidpro.com for that video. Again, probably late December, early January. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap it up for the night. Everybody have a great evening. Appreciate all your time. And come back December 11th. Thanks. Have a good evening.